Hello and welcome to another OneSoccer Player and Pundit Hangouts. I'm Ace Raymond with Kurt Larson and Oliver Platt. This is episode 9, so it's fitting that we have former Canadian national team striker Iain Hume on with us with 43 caps to his name. He's an incredible player for club and country. He's played all over the world in England, most recently in India, and we're happy to have him joining us now. Born in Edinburgh, Scotland. Iain, how are you holding up? How are things going?
Yeah, not too bad. Just enjoying a bit of forced time with the family, which is always good. But hey, I got to make the most of it and get to spend some time here, or some quality time here with them, and just see how things move on.
Yeah, you look like you're comfortable. You feel like it seems like you're doing well. Things are going all right so far.
Yeah, just it's frustrating times for everybody, isn't it? So I can't really complain and say things aren't working out for me, but I get to spend time at home, and which I haven't done many times over the last 5 years. So it's been a good time.
You said it. Home. Where is home? You've been all over the place. Born in Scotland, right now in the UK. I know you're trying to come back to Canada. Spent a fair bit of your life in Canada as well, and then time in India. So where is home for Iain Hume?
Well, it's always been here. The last 20 years, anyways. I've been over here since September '99, so the UK has been home for me for the majority of my life. Although, like you said, born in Scotland, it's growing up in Canada was great, but to make a career out of football at the time was coming over here, and it was something I embraced and I took a firm grasp of, and been here 20 years. And like you said, looking to move back to Canada. Finally won the family around a little bit. I'll drag them over kicking and screaming, I think, at points. But for the most part, I'm looking to get back over there soon.
What are you planning on doing in Canada? What's next for Iain Hume?
Well, unfortunately, it looks like the playing days are over. Although not to the fact that I've been wanting to do it, but waiting on phone calls, emails, texts, and replies from people is kind of mind numbing now. I'm 36-year-old and I'm sick of chasing people for things. So looking into doing the other side of it now and progressing with my coaching, because I've recently passed my B license, my UEFA B license.
Well done.
Speaking to the CSA and OSA about changing that into the Canadian B license, which has been approved. So now it's just what's the next step and where can I go from here?
Iain, it seemed like every time I spoke with you during your time with Canada, there was always a little bit of interest, maybe getting to Major League Soccer or finishing your career out in Canada. There were little whispers here and there about a few CPL teams being interested. What can you tell us now about how close you were to coming over to North America, perhaps finishing your career here? Were all the rumors true? Can you just walk us through that process and maybe why nothing never materialized?
I don't know why they never materialized. There was always whispers. I've wanted to move back to the MLS, especially to Toronto, for the last 5-6 years. I think since before I moved to India the first time, I wanted to come back in some way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, things never materialized with MLS. So India came up. It was before I moved to India, it was the first time in 15 years I was out of contract. So I'd never had the opportunity to go for free. And then when I finally was available for free, nobody ever followed up said interest. So it came up last year with the CPL, made myself available to people, speaking to agents and clubs, and one of them had the courtesy of calling me back. They'd made an offer, which I was more than happy. Won the wife and kids round about coming over, and then it fell through last minute. But thankfully, they called me. They spoke to me over the phone. I know, obviously, couldn't do face to face as I was in Asia, but yeah, just the other ones I'm still waiting. 3 or 4 missed opportunities to reply to texts and emails, and I'll call you tomorrow, and that was almost a year ago. So I'm still waiting.
So have you officially hung him up then, or is there a chance he might come back this year?
Well, nothing's official. after, like, obviously question marks were always over 35-year-old coming back from an ACL reconstruction. Came back in India last year, played 15 games. Felt great. Season finished. I was, fingers crossed, hoping to jump straight into the CPL. It would have been ideal for me at full fitness. I just missed the window, as I hadn't been paid at the time, so I didn't want to walk out of that contract, because then they'd hold it up against me saying, "Oh, well, you've got a club." So I was waiting for the July window to open, or whatever it was in the CPL last year. Got told to hang fire and keep people posted with my status. I did so. And as you've seen last season, I didn't join the CPL, so they obviously didn't follow it up. I've not hung them up officially. I think it's the most unofficial retirement ever, because I've been out of it for a year now. I'm 36-year-old, and although I'm not 100% fit, I think I still have a lot to offer. But if it doesn't come, then it's that. I've kind of accepted the fact that it's nearly done, and I think time to look at
Iain. Yeah, Iain, please take this as a compliment. But I'm a bit curious as to why maybe more CPL teams wouldn't want somebody as accomplished as yourself, somebody who has experience in the game, somebody who can perhaps bring the young players along, especially when you look at a lot of the international signings last year in the CPL. I'm not afraid to say were pretty terrible throughout the season. You look at a guy like Stephen Hoyle for Valor. Rob Gale brings him in, ships him out right away. Perea at Halifax did okay, but he was always injured. Simon Adjie at York 9 didn't offer nearly as much as that club had hoped they would. So why wouldn't a team want to give Iain Hume a chance?
I have no idea. Like, seriously, I was so frustrated and kind of hurt, to be honest. Like, like I said, the only one team spoke to me regarding an offer, and that was the only one who got anything financial across to me. So they can't come back to me and say, "Oh, we couldn't afford it," because you didn't know what I would have accepted. I wanted, and I was hell-bent, seriously, on finishing my career at home. To get my parents to come out and watch me, my family, friends to come out and watch me play, finish my career. I'd have been content with that. But again, like, I'll name, I've got in contact with Forge. Never had the guy says, "Oh, I'll call you tomorrow." Yeah, that was in May. Jimmy, I'm waiting on Jimmy. I messaged him before Christmas regarding this season. "Oh, I'll call you in a couple of days." Yeah, those couple of days have turned into 4 months. And this is a guy who I played with, which has upset me the most. I spoke to Gailey at Valor, and he said he'd be in contact with me, and they're looking for experience. And I was quite happy to go there, and they go and sign 2 foreign strikers, and then a couple of days after, which frustrated me a little bit. And I think it's been the kind of the story with the way things have run with me over the last couple of years. And I think it all started out way back when we played Scotland. I was playing in Spain. We had 1 striker in the squad. And I'm thinking, if ever there's a way for me to finish my international career, bring me into the Scotland-Canada game. I'm playing week in, week out in Spain, thinking, perfect opportunity. No phone call. They have 1 striker in the squad of 18. So I'm like, it kind of frustrated me, and it has done over the last couple of years. And listen, I'm not saying I expect and I deserve people to call me back. It's just common courtesy. You hope for people to return the favor when you push the boat out to make contact, and you never ever have contact back.
Iain, do you think, even beyond the CPL and maybe into your national team days as well, there's maybe different ways players are treated between the ones who have kind of grown up in Canada and in the system and maybe played in North America versus the ones who have been more Europe-based?
I'm not so much against the Europe-based ones, but if you play outside of Europe, it's you're essentially off the list. Yeah. Like, I'll be honest with you, I was playing the best soccer in my last 15 years in India. Okay, people look at it as India and say, "Oh, not good enough." But what's for me, in my eyes, what's better, playing week in, week out and scoring goals, or sitting on the bench and doing nothing? Mm-hmm. And the old adage from years ago was club unattached. That was the one we had along our list.
Yeah.
The thing is, it frustrated me because I knew I was doing everything I could club level, regardless where it was. And I'll highlight another one. Issei Nakajima Farhan was playing in Malaysia, banging goals in left, right, and center, and couldn't get a sniff for somebody playing on the bench in the MLS or on the bench in USL, which it's frustrating because you're just trying to make a living, regardless where it is. At the end of the day, I've got 2 kids and a wife and 2 dogs, and I've got to put a roof over their heads. And if I'm getting offered 20 grand a year to play USL or 100 grand a year to play in India or whatever, there's no disrespect. There's no comparison.
Yeah.
And if I'm playing week in, week out, that's all I want to do. I'm a footballer. I'm not somebody who's content to go and travel around North America and sit on the bench and play in a league that, for me, I was playing against teams in that league when I was 14, 15 years old. I wanted to test myself. Okay, later end of my career, I moved to India. That was purely out of frustration at the start, just to get away from things and start afresh. And I made a bigger name for myself there than I have anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating chapter of your career. We'll get into that in a little bit. Actually, the first time, I believe it's one of the first times Kurt ran into was not in Canada. Kurt has a story to share. Kurt, what's this all about?
This is one of the most special stories I have. I don't think Iain Hume realizes how much it meant to me that he reached out to me. But I was in Paris covering the 2016 Euros. I was basically in isolation because I don't speak any French, and I was in a pretty poor hotel in Paris. So I was pretty much in isolation there, as I am now. But I get a message from Iain Hume saying, "Oh, I see you're in Paris." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, eventually we figured out that his hotel was right down the street. And so we met up at a pub about halfway. I think I had about 4 or 5 pints. He had 0 pints. I think you were still playing at the time. And he paid for all my pints. I'm still wondering to this day why Iain Hume invited me out, just me out for drinks. I'm the only one who drank, but why'd you do that? Were you that bored, Iain?
Oh, I was drinking. I was there for the World Football Forum because we just finished the first Indian Super League, and I just won Player of the Year. I had a big name out there, and they got invited to the Football Forum. So my agent, who's of Indian heritage, lives in London, so he was a part of the board that was going over. And I don't know if you know Seema Jaswal. She does the Premier League in the UK. She was out there doing talking with Manish Bashin, who was out there. So they asked me to go along. All paid, flew me over. All I had to do was get food and drink, which wasn't a problem. I was only there for 2 nights. So I seen you pop up, and I'm like, oh. So I'd spoke to you once before to do a short interview, and I'm like, hey, whereabouts are you? You sent me your location. We ended up being about a mile apart. We're like, yeah, go on.
Can you confirm to the audience out there that I actually can hold a solid conversation?
Yeah, you're all right sometimes. No, it was just a random meeting, and I just thought, listen, I've got quite a few hours to kill before. Obviously, I think it was the semifinals was on. Just after that, when they had there was the riots down our street, and they were jumping on buses and all that, and I thought, well, the game's not on for a couple hours, and I seen your tweet, and I'm like, oh, crap. Well, where are you?
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
It was thoroughly enjoyable. Sat there, had a chat, a couple beers. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Story out all these years later.
Yeah.
Playing the long game, I see. Joining us on this OneSoccer Hangout live on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, watching live stream right now, you have any questions for Iain Hume, feel free to fire away. We like to have a lot of fun on these shows. We usually ask what people are watching, whether it's on streaming sites or what you're watching just in general. What are you listening to, though? Is there any music that you're listening to on the regular while in isolation, Iain?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big music guy. I'm my missus normally puts on playlists from Spotify or whatever, or Apple Music, and I just go along with it. Or my daughter has She has all her K-pop, which she loves, which
There you go.
drives me absolutely insane.
See, I can relate. In our house, yeah, the kids, I have a 5-year-old and year-olds, and pick and choose what we listen to. So it's been the Descendants 3 soundtrack lately.
I think we went through that a couple years ago. I'm
Behind you.
16 and 10 now, so it's kind of my 16-year-old controls the speaker and puts her K-pop and BTS and whatever it is.
I don't know if that's an upgrade or downgrade.
It's a
Find out in a few years.
100%.
Ollie, what about you? What are you
What am I listening to?
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a hip hop fan, so I don't know if anyone else is, but
There it is. I love it. I love it.
yeah. So there's a guy. This is a mildly interesting story, I think. There's a guy called J Electronica who put out kind of not really an album, just a little kind of mixtape thing 13 years ago. And it was really good. He got signed by Jay-Z, and then he did absolutely nothing after that for 13 years. But a couple of weeks ago, he finally put out his debut album. So I've been listening to that, and it's pretty good.
Oh, that's great.
I wouldn't say it was worth 13 years wait, but it's a good listen.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I'm thoroughly entertained by that story.
Awesome.
I thought you would be.
All right, we got a question from the chat. Tim in the chat asks, what Iain Hume made of the CPL level of play in the first season?
Sorry, I broke up there. Sorry.
Yeah, Iain, just wondering what you thought of the level of play in the CPL in the first year.
From like I watched good portion of the first half season, the spring season. I thought it was technically good. I thought what we've gone over. I thought a lot of the teams lacked a bit of leadership. I think they were very much just given. It felt like they were just given a ball and go out and play. You know what I mean? Like athleticism, technical ability was there, and with the obviously being together for such a short space of time before the season started. Okay, they had their month and a half preseason, but it was all new faces, everyone together. It's hard to gel. I understand that. I think they just, like I said, lacked a bit of leadership. They needed some old heads in there, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but players along the same ilk of myself, like Dave Edgar came in later in the season. You didn't get much of Marcel, obviously, with his injury. He came in at the end of the season. Issei didn't play much, but there wasn't many people who could get a grip of the team and just say, listen, let's just stop for a minute, breathe, and let's work from there. It was just pretty much go out and play. And everyone was going 100 miles an hour. It was, people didn't really look like they knew how to manage a game.
No.
Do you think that's why there was a lot of inconsistency with some teams outside of maybe the Cavalry and Forge? I mean, you look at a team like Pacific, at times they would put on a bit of a clinic when they were playing at home, and then so many young players where they'd go away and they'd lose 3-0, right? Or you look at Winnipeg would put up an impressive win somewhere on occasion, and then they'd, lose 3 straight. I mean, does a veteran presence, does that help provide a little bit of consistency in a team?
I think especially away from home. I think because the lack of experience, like, listen, this sounds like I'm going on about it, but they've got the ability, but you don't just learn how to be a professional footballer off ability. You learn off making mistakes, off playing loads and loads of games. You don't just, a 16-year-old or 17 or an 18-year-old doesn't walk into a club and know how to manage a game. It's very, very rare. And I think teams are going in, and like I watched it a couple of times with Halifax, and the way they tried to pass the ball around, and it works sometimes. And that's the way Harty plays. And I understand that. And that's the way Harty will always play. But like you said with Pacific, with all the young players they had, they would do it at home, and then they'd go away and try and do the exact same thing. But you can't do that. And you see it in the Premier League when Swansea came up. They tried to do the same thing and it didn't work. They have to adjust the way they play. And that comes with experience. It comes with making mistakes. You never, ever learn of doing the perfect things, of playing, like you play a perfect game at home.
Yeah.
You win 3-0. You go and try and play the exact same game at Forge or at York or wherever, it's not your home. These teams are where you were. They're trying to do and you don't learn off being perfect all the time. You learn off making mistakes, and I don't think guys were learning last year. They kept trying to do the same thing.
And I think we saw that with the Canadian national team at times too. Good at home, bad away.
Many times. Trust me.
There's a transition for you.
Yeah, there you go. Let's get right into the Canadian national team. You chose to play for Canada, represent Canada as a teenager. Just overall, looking back at your time with Canada, how do you feel it went? How do you feel about the experience?
I'm honestly I'm one of the most proud national team players you'll ever meet. When I pull on that shirt, I still get goosebumps whenever I hear the national anthem and whenever I watch the boys play. I stay up till stupid o'clock to watch the boys play. But I think I could have and probably should have done a lot more with the national team. With the situation when I first came through, I was playing League One. We didn't have international breaks. So I kept having to pull out exhibition games. And when Thomas Radzinski was in the squad, if he didn't want to go to a game, I get called up. If he wanted to go, I didn't go. Like I missed out on Czech Republic, Germany. I missed out on a lot of big games. Spain. I missed out on these games because there was players who wanted to go, but they didn't want to go and play in bloody Luxembourg or whatever. Like it just how it was. And hey, listen, I was a fringe player at the time. But looking back, I wish I'd played a lot more because I think the level I was playing at, I think I was more than capable of playing more games and starting games. Even when I was involved, I sat on the bench quite a lot, watching games when I knew I could have done a lot more. But hey, every time I pulled on the shirt, it was always an honor, and it was always the pinnacle of my career was playing for my country.
We're going to get into some of the maybe some moments that you were a part of that didn't go so well, but you're, I'm sure, a part of a lot of memories that you're quite fond of. So let's talk about those first. I mean, can you give us some of your fondest memories, obviously from the times that you had earned a cap and played and participated, the goals you scored, the games you won? What were some of the fondest memories while competing with Canada?
Well, first and foremost was making my debut. Playing in Libya was insane. Like when you've got I think it was Gaddafi's nephews or sons playing in the game. And the crowd, it was insane. Like seriously, it was insane. Was
he good at least? Was he good?
He was the best shaker of hands I've ever seen in my life. When he went off, he shook every player on the field hand. And the ref never hurried him up, nothing. He walked around and getting the applause off the crowd. And like there was a coach from Canada, well, he's Chilean or something like that, Armando something. He was out there employed to be his personal coach. Ben Johnson was out there to be his sprint coach.
Okay.
It was crazy. You know, you could tell we bumped into Ben Johnson. Like we're like, what's going on? Like this guy's walking around our hotel. He goes, yeah, they pay for me to stay here. They pay for me to coach his son or the family member. I'm like, what? Like ridiculous. Yeah. But that was obviously making my debut was the pinnacle. The infamous game against the US, like that, scoring against the US was obviously a massive one for me. Coming, like even though I only came on as a sub, made a goal line clearance, scored, played a part in the goal that should have stood, and I just smashed people around the field a little bit. I think Onyewu and Bocanegra were a little bit upset that I came on and I was throwing my frame around, my massive 5'7.5" frame. But I love that game. I just thought I made such an impact in that. And then I think a big one, although against the lesser, was St. Lucia away. I thought it was an experience, and I played a part in every goal but one, I think, and scored a couple, set 3 or 4 up. And for me, on a whole, although it wasn't against the greatest opposition, was the one I made the most impact in.
It's good. Yeah, we wish we could have seen more of you. Did you ever get an explanation from any of the coaches or any staff as to why you didn't make the roster more often?
No, I think to put it bluntly, no. No, listen, I knew everybody goes into the national team want to play. I know that. Some played a little bit more than others. That was obviously going to happen in certain formations that we played. Like playing the 4-3-3 for me wasn't ideal because I'm not a 6'3" center forward and I'm not a 100-meter sprinter to play out wide. So for me, it was kind of I played number 10 or I played number 9 against certain teams. Against the big teams, it was ones that I'd never really play a part in unless I came on to sort of waste a bit of time at the end of the game or come on and try and make an impact at the end of the game. But again, it's never ungrateful, the fact that I was called up, but disappointed that I didn't play as much as I should have.
One of the interesting things, and it hasn't happened so much with Canada, just because the roster hasn't been that deep for the last decade or so. But I remember growing up in the United States, whenever the roster was coming out, there'd always be great debate about who deserved to be there, who didn't deserve to be there, guys who should be getting more of a chance. So who are some of the other guys like you who you don't think maybe got the most chances they deserved during their professional career in terms of call-ups, or maybe guys that did get call-ups that you thought maybe deserved a little bit more recognition?
I don't know, to be honest.
You mentioned Issy.
Yeah, he say, listen, he was the same as me. He was playing constantly, wherever he was, whatever country, even when he went to Australia, when he was out in Malaysia, he was always playing. Yet some reason he wouldn't get called up. Okay, maybe when he came in, he might not have done that well. I don't know. Like when I was there, he never really played poorly that I seen. I'm trying to think. There's not many guys, to be honest, who I think should have been called up a bit more. I know there's a lot of guys who turn down call-ups on numerous occasions. Yet they still get called back, which frustrated me. Especially when it comes to tournaments and qualifiers and this and that. There's a couple guys who are still involved with the squad who did that on numerous occasions. But it seemed to get not overlooked, but pushed to the side for the next coach coming in. They kind of forget what happened in the past. But I guess that's par for the course in football. It's horses for courses. And if a different coach comes in and he'll look at his player pool regardless of the past, he'll look at his player pool and say, well, this guy's for me, this guy's not. And I think for the most part, I don't forget a lot of things when it comes to people coming in, coming out, and how they play when they come in and how they care about wearing the shirt. I think there's quite a lot I say quite a lot. There's more than a handful of players who I know have come in and not really cared, which frustrates me because every time I pull on the shirt, and I know a lot of the other guys pull on the shirt, it's a memorable thing. And I think there's a few too many for my liking that went like that.
So I love your top three, given that they include games at Libya and games at St. Lucia. You got the Gold Cup shout in there as well. So we've gotten through the good moments for Iain Hume. But you were also, I would say, a significant part in one of Canada's worst moments. And
100%.
that was in 2012. It was in Honduras. You were there. I was there. But it was also it was poetic in a way because, of course, it's Iain Hume, tireless effort. Stephen Hart looks down his bench. Everybody slumps except for you. And he calls your number to go into a game that's already put to bed. And you come in and you score a goal. What are your memories from that 8-1 game? When you think back to it, do you just think about you stepping onto the pitch and scoring? Do you think about the smell of the locker room and the aftermath? What do you think about?
That was a hard one because it's easy to say it now, but we had 3 top chances before they scored their first goal. I think I know for a fact we hit the post. The keeper made a save, but we should have had at least two. In my eyes, at least two of those three should have gone in. Then I always think, would I have put them in? If I'm on and I'm at my best, do I score those? So that's always going through my head. But then they have 1 shot goal, 2 shots goal. I think they had, in the first half, I think they had maybe 7 or 8 shots, scored 6. Like it was a surreal game. Like it was crazy that every time they went up the field, it's like, what the hell's going on here? Like we're sitting on the bench going, I just don't know what I'm watching. Like it felt like a bad dream. Like it was literally a nightmare because every time they went forward, it's like, what's his face? Who was the striker with the long hair for them?
Costly, Bingston.
Costly. He doing that stupid move and everyone knows about it and it still comes off. That little where he goes to back heel it and fakes it, and we speak about it all the time, and then you see him do it and you're like, why are you falling for it? He's not going to beat you for pace ever. He's only 1-footed. He's never going to go anywhere else, yet we fall for it every time. And him and that Bengtson, seriously, that's a game that you try to forget about and you just can't. And sitting there thinking back and the chances that we had and where we could have put the game to bed early doors and then shut up shop, we just capitulated. We just fell apart completely.
I talked to Stephen Hart about this for an upcoming documentary on OneSoccer. There's actually going to be a trailer that comes out tomorrow. We went to Halifax for 3 days to chat with him, not about that game, but obviously that game comes up in his tenure with Canada. And I asked him, I said, did the players let you down that day, or did you not prepare them properly? That sort of thing, right? Stephen Hart, he's a class guy. He still refuses to answer that question to this day. So maybe Iain Hume will answer it. Do you think the players let down the coach that day? You think they let themselves down that day, or was it something else? Was it a perfect storm?
I'll be honest, it was our fault. End of. There's no way. And let's be honest, up until this group of players that we've got at this moment, there was no better football inside that Canada's had over the last 20 years. I don't care what anyone says. On paper, on the field, the way we played football at times was as good as anything in CONCACAF. And
I agree.
It was our fault. No, Harty can't take any blame for that. And if anyone says any different, they need to look themselves in the mirror, because we go down there. Okay, we should have been sorted already. The game at home against where we finished, what was it, 0-0 or 1-1?
0-0, I believe.
Well, yeah, 0-0 because we missed about 4 chances. But we should have been sorted before then. If anyone goes down and says, "Oh yeah, they didn't prepare us right," how can you not prepare us right? We had a private plane. We flew down there. We stayed in a hotel. We had all this sorted. What else do you need to do? What else do you want to be done? You can't look at it and say, "Oh, well, if they done this, if they done that." At the end of the day, it's us. We step over the field. We knew what we needed from the game. We knew we needed at least a point.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you can't go down there and say, "Oh, well, this was the problem. This was the problem. We should have started him." Okay, listen, I think I should have started. You want somebody to run around and smash people around and ruffle feathers for 90 minutes? Or for an hour or whatever in 40-degree heat? Throw me on. Like at the end of the day, you put me on at halftime. I was frustrated anyways. So me and Lucas come on and we ruffled feathers. We upset them massively. And okay, it was too late in the day. But then you look at the ifs and buts. If they'd have started, if us two had started up front, if this had happened. But at the end of the day, it's our fault. We conceded 8 bloody goals against Honduras when we knew we were a better team than them. But they made us look like fools.
Played them off the park at BMO Field.
Yeah, just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah.
Did you get the feeling beforehand that anything was wrong, like the psychologically, mentally, that there was anything wrong there, or did it come completely as a surprise watching on the bench?
Oh, there was nothing wrong. Like that's it. We prepared for the game as well as we possibly could. Like we can't argue about anything. Like, listen, the CSA pushed the boat out for us that qualifying because they knew it was our best opportunity. Mm-hmm. when you've got a team of Will Johnson, Julian, Patrice, Tiba, me, Simeon, Toss, Olivier, Kev McKenna, you got this team of players who were playing every week for their clubs. No unattached players at that time. Yeah. We were all playing, we're all coming in, and we were all as fit as we possibly could be. You can't make it. We as a team, as a country, as a association with the CS, we can't make any excuses. They pushed the boat out fully for us. Mm-hmm. Good game fees. Like, this is something that's always come up: game fees, travel arrangements, this, that. First class flights from your club to Canada to play games. First class flights to wherever to play games. Flying in a private plane. We were doing everything in our power to make things right. So if anyone complains about that, flying coach for a qualifier on a Sunday afternoon from from Manchester to London to bloody Florida, to fly out to wherever, to Honduras, to play a Tuesday night, to fly back to play on the Saturday, that was tough. Flying first class flights where you got the bed and all that, if you're complaining about that, you need to give your head a shake and realize that this is the real world.
I tried to get on that flight down there on media. They wouldn't let me on.
Yeah, you could have come down. You'd have had to get your own back because you would have got thrown out the bloody window.
Iain, you mentioned that was the best Canadian squad right up until this current crop. So let's fast forward to this group. Given the World Cup qualifying schedule to kick off this summer, are we looking at an abridged format in CONCACAF? Because obviously with everything shut down right now because of COVID-19, they are essentially out of the hex. So let's put your pundit hat on, Iain. What do you think the solution could be here?
It's mad though. I was talking to Kurt about it when I was over a couple months ago, and the way that they're going through how the fixtures are going to line up if we didn't make hex, I think it's insane. Like, it's all the amount of games they're going to have to play, and these guys are going to have to play these and these, like bringing it all in. Like, I think it's going to be a massive fixture congestion trying to sort it all out, along with finalizing leagues and finalizing all the stuff that's going on if they finalize the leagues. But you look at the squad they've got, what I think whoever they put towards Canada right now, if Herdman coaches them the way he proved in one game against the US, I think there's not many teams in CONCACAF who can beat them. But again, on the other hand, you look at the second game against the US, and depends which team shows up and which way they want to go about it.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion on that series, right? Because it ultimately had them crash out of the Nations League, and after endlessly praising them for what I thought was the best performance I've ever seen from a Canadian team against a good team in the United States, they go down and of course lose 4-1 to the US. So I want to get your opinion on that in a little bit, but it's interesting what's going on with CONCACAF right now, because I took a brief look today, and after by the end of this year, they're supposed to have 60% of World Cup qualifying completed. So if they don't start that process, does Canada get some kind of second reprieve and get to go into a different kind of competition, or do they try and do the hex in a different way? I don't know. I asked Oliver Platt to prepare something here. So Oliver Platt, I'm going to ask you first, then I'm going to give you my opinion. But if CONCACAF needs to reconfigure the qualification process, how should they do it?
Yeah, I tried to prepare something and I got nothing, because I don't know how you really change this. Qualification's not supposed to start until September, so I think I'd probably put my money on it staying the same. Fingers crossed we're kind of relatively back to normal by then. But as much as I think there is an element of unfairness that Canada, in terms of their points, have been put out of the hex based on performances over the past few years, I don't really see how you can now reconfigure it at such a late stage and potentially make it even more unfair to other nations. So I can't see any changes being made. I don't really see a solution as to how that would work, but I'm excited to hear yours.
Oh yeah, that wasn't the homework. The homework was to come up with a new solution. So mine's easy. I mean, you see how the youth teams do it for qualification. I think you just hold a mini World Cup within the Confederation, and the semifinalists all get a berth into the World Cup.
Yeah, like
entertaining.
I'd sign up for that. I don't see CONCACAF going for something like that. There's too much risk of one of their big hitters losing one game and not making it to a World Cup.
Well, there's one big hitter now. It's Mexico. There are no other big hitters, in my opinion.
Well, okay. Economically, the US is a big hitter.
All right, real quick. Let's get to Ian's take on what happened. I know we want to get to our fun segment here, but really quick, Iain, on what you think happened between the two legs in the Nations League, between the Canada performing so well at home and then going down and looking completely not on the same page.
He changed too much. I think that's the easiest way to put it, is he changed too much in the formation and the personnel. I think you had the boy from Orlando playing left wing. I can't remember his name. Miller,
yeah.
He was incredible. Absolutely incredible in the first game. And then to accommodate playing Jonathan David and Lucas Cavallini, he changes formation or plays one player out of position. I think if everyone was fit from the first leg, stay the same. Instead, he's gone down there, kind of jig things around a little bit too much, and they looked all out of sorts, and they just didn't have the same drive. They didn't have the same comprehension of where they needed to be. And let's be honest, the first game, it was a beating. It was a bullying, which is rare against the US for Canada. Not many times over the last 20 years has Canada actually bullied the US. And this is one of them, where they just beat them up every time they got near, whether it was a foul or not.
Yep.
Left a foot in, won the ball, bit more physical. The way Canada used to play all those years ago made sure that the US never got their game plan.
Yeah.
And with the bit of quality we have with Alfonso, with Jonathan David, with Oso, with these guys going forward with the speed and the sort of, in a way, the good thing, the naivety of them, they go forward and they just don't care. They feel like they're playing on a field with their friends. And we did that along with the physical side of the game, and it was an absolute beating for me. Okay, the US had a couple chances, but that's what Milan was there for. Make saves. That's his job. So you go down to the US, and for me, it's do the same. Go with the same game plan. Make sure you're shore up at the defense, and allow your flair players and your athletic players to go and make a difference.
Yeah.
But too many changes, and I think they changed a little bit too much, and I think it cost them. Well, it did definitely cost them.
Yeah, you mentioned some great players on that current roster. I'm curious to see how many of those players will feature into our next segment. We're talking about the best players, the best starting 11 for Canada when you take the past 20 years. So your crop, obviously, Iain Hume, and the current one, anyone from the past 20 years will go through each position group, starting with the goalkeeper. And this is an opportunity for everyone watching on YouTube as well to chime in, flood it with your answers.
I'm
so feel
sure
free
they
to
will.
let us know who you want on the chat. So let's start with the goalkeepers, and I'll go to you first, Kurt. Kurt, who do you?
You can't really go wrong with many of these. Interestingly enough, Craig Forrest could appeared in. I think he appeared in the 2000s, barely. So you could throw him in there, but I don't think that's fair.
Forrest in there for sure.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think he didn't play enough in the 2000s. You got Borjan, you got Lars, but I'm going with Pat Onstad, MLS legend.
Okay.
Iain doesn't like it. Look at
That's a good reaction.
We got to get through these quicker than that, though. Sorry, I'm giving the.
Well, here, interesting story about that is we missed out on Asmir Begovic.
That's right.
We played against Iceland in Iceland. Asmir was there as the number 2.
Yeah.
And I think it was Lars got injured. And instead of playing Asmir, we called in Pat Onstad. Hey, listen, I get on very well with Pat and played with Pat. But we call in Pat Onstad from San Jose or from Houston, wherever he was at the time, and he plays 90 minutes in the game, we could have had Asmir Begovic. And this was before the cap tying was allowed.
Well,
like
yeah,
people play a
and
friendly and whatever.
not only that, but he was
So-
also on the bench for a 2008 World Cup qualifier at BMO Field, if I remember correctly. Asmir, yeah.
But there you go. We could have had Asmir, but see, Pat was class for us. But I think Asmir Begovic
one.
would have been.
Can you give us a see? I want you to give us a story about every player I named.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Ollie.
Well, I'm going to disregard what you said, not for the first time on these Hangouts, and go with Craig Forrest.
Oh my God, so
Of course, he's the
unfair.
guy,
He
too.
was a 2000 Gold Cup winner. He was the MVP of that tournament. I think in terms of Canada's, aside from the World Cup qualification, in terms of Canada's biggest tournament ever, he was the best player there. So for me, that easily qualifies him for the team.
All right,
Yeah,
fine.
he was a hero. Ian, thoughts on Forrest?
See, I never played with Stacks that much. I think I was there for one Gold Cup with him in 2001. I think he was involved in. For goalkeepers, I'll have to, as much as I played with Lars, I have to go with my boy Milan. Milan Borjan's playing year in, year out in Europe, and I think although he's a bit of a space cadet, he's an incredible goalkeeper.
Right.
I think you guys
All
need
right.
3. All right, let's get to the back line then. I'll take 4 of them. So we'll get 4 defenders.
You can't tell me what my formation is going to be.
I wanna-
And I just so you know, I have 4. I have 4, but I'm just saying you
I
can't
also
tell.
have 4.
Go, Kurt.
All right. All right. So this is where people are going to say, "Oh, you forgot about this guy," and then I'm going to be like, "Oh yeah, you're right. He should be on my list."
No, there are a bunch here. Yeah, this is a tough.
All right. So I'm going Stalteri at right fullback. I'm going with Kevin McKenna at center back. I'm also going with David Edgar at center back. And then I'm going, this is a tough one at left fullback, but I'm going to go with Jim Brennan at left fullback.
Close to me. Yeah, left back was tough because you think about like Hastings. He's not in my team, and he was the tough one to leave out because he did play well for Canada. But I've got Brennan there as well. I've also got Stalteri and McKenna. The only difference is I've gone Jason DeVos over David Edgar.
Yeah, DeVos was the one I thought we may be missing out there. But Davies, did Davies get into the conversation at all? Left back?
No, come on, dude.
Maybe later.
Not for Canada. Davies isn't a fullback for Canada, buddy.
Special though.
I was going to bring that up, but I know how hard that hits Kurt. So,
Yeah.
Did you not watch him at Stanford Bridge? What, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, he's a lot of guys could play fullback for Bayern Munich.
Hey, not take the mick like that.
Yeah. He's not a fullback for Canada. I want my best players furthest forward when they're playing for country.
Okay.
All right. Ian, anyone we're missing there?
Although he hasn't played as much as he probably should, maybe Marcel de Jong, but
he's in my parentheses.
I'd have, for me, because I played with Jimmy, but not as much. I'd probably have Rich Hastings over Jimmy as a defender. I think Rich was an incredible defender.
Is that because he didn't call you back?
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right.
Honestly, Rich Hastings was an incredible defender, and he was a proper old-fashioned British defender as well. Like, he'd leave his foot in before he got the ball and then make sure he got the ball afterwards. He was one of those.
Well, you need that. All right, let's get to the midfield now. What do you have here? You got 5 here, Kurt?
Throw out 3. Going with 3.
Okay.
So I'm going with Julian. I'm going with Atiba.
Yeah.
I think you have to have those. If you don't have those, then you're lost. Yeah. This next one is very difficult because I can't think of very many kind of attack-minded kind of midfielders to play behind the strikers. So I just went with a box-to-box guy, and I just threw Scott Arfield in there.
Arfield, solid. Yeah.
On quality, I'd have that. I don't know if he's had as sustained an impact as others, but I don't mind that. I got de Guzman and Atiba as well, and then again, kind of same thought process as Kurt. This one's a little contentious. I got Patrice Bernier in there.
100%.
Wow.
That's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah.
Honorable mention.
Yeah.
Like Nick Ledgerwood deserves a shout just for, the amount of times he answered the call and playing all over the pitch and just being a soldier for the Canadian men's national team. So Ledger gets a shout out from me.
And best CPL celebration.
Yeah.
Ledge would have been behind Stolly for me right back.
Yeah, I considered it before. Okay. I actually forgot about Paul Stalteri, believe it or not, and I actually had Ledgerwood there, and then I had to cross him out.
So some of the midfield players, I guess we'd go into the front three. So I'll wait to hear what you guys have for your front three. I'll start with you, Kurt. Who do you have up top?
Okay, so I'm going to go with my two ones that aren't controversial. So I threw Alphonso Davies in there. I think you have to. He's just done too much now and played in too many big games for a massive team, and he's played well for Canada. You got to have Dwayne in there. So I have Dwayne Di Rosario on the opposite side. This is the one right here that I'm interested to see what people say. And I'm going with Tomas Radzinski.
Yeah, Radzinski's
furthest forward for me.
Yeah, I got Dero and Davies as well. And I've gone Jonathan David up front. I kind of cycled through the strikers. And Radzinski
hasn't done enough yet, man.
For me, Gold Cup, Golden Boot. I think he was the best 11. Well, he would have been best 11 in that tournament. He's going to be the record goal scorer probably within a year. So
if a player currently had Radzinski's run of form and run of clubs, we would be over the moon with this guy and talking endlessly about him. Scored a ton of goals for Anderlecht. We know he played for Everton. He played for Fulham. So many games in the Premier League, and you can't leave him off. Not at this point.
I thought about him, but I still like David.
Hume?
Yeah, I think the 9's the toughest spot, Ian. So we need you to figure this one out.
See, we're so blessed with a lot of players who can play and can be in that. For me, if that's going to be the case, and I'll argue with Kurt here, and I know he'll get upset, I'll put Alfonso left back, just because we'd have him there, and then
I agree with this.
Dero, Thomas, and Jonathan David as my front three.
Yeah.
Okay. I refuse to do it. I refuse to put.
No, I understand that, but who do you leave out? Would you rather leave out Jimmy Brennan and play Alfonso left back and get Jonathan David, Thomas, and Dwayne in? Or would you?
Well, I just think there's a bit of like having to have more, I guess, skin in the game, right? More appearances, more going through hard times with the national team before I just kind of throw you in there because you've had a good run of form for a year or two.
Well, then
I'd agree with that on a lot of players.
Well, then the argument goes against Alfonso Davis as well.
I know, but he met that threshold where I'm like, I cannot leave. You cannot leave Alfonso Davies out of the team.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't played for Vancouver and been in the limelight in your backyard, would you have thought the same thing?
No, it's a result of playing 20 plus games for Bayern Munich and celebrating goals with, Thomas Muller every weekend.
But then Jonathan David being linked with moves to Chelsea and Atletico Madrid. Hey, Alfonso Davis was linked with moves to Bayern.
Yeah.
I'm with Ian. For me, David is on maybe not quite the same level as Davies, but he's right there, and he hasn't got his big move to a club like Bayern yet, but it's coming. He's got the talent for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Before we move on, though, I got to get Ian's take on a couple of guys. Pescu Solido, does he get in?
I thought about him with Radzinski as well, but not quite.
What about
Pesh? Unfortunately for Pesh, it's still you've got to compete with those three guys up front, and I think he's just below that.
Okay, what about Carlo Corazin?
Same level as Pesh, Dave Zauser as well back then. These guys, they were scoring goals, but when you compare them now in modern football, it's the same as me. You compare my level in modern football with these pacey guys, it's a non-entity. You can't even start. Okay, I'll wrestle with them and I'll fight with them, but when it comes to athleticism, we're all struggling.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll go with the current one then. Cavallini, does he crack the lineup?
Oh, come on.
Not yet.
No, David.
No.
Yeah, not for me. Not over David.
You can't do it on the squad right now. Yeah, I agree. I think David's the guy. I've seen enough from David. Good. Well done, guys. Good little bit. I don't think we missed anyone, so that's not bad. We got through it all. All right.
Hossein Ricketts has got to be thrown in there with a mention for his goals for his country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else we're missing, Ian?
To be honest, not many other players I'd throw in the mix. Scotty Arfield would be the argument, with obviously some people, TFC fans, will throw Oso in there.
Yeah. All right, let's get right into our rapid fire questions now. These are all directed straight to you, Ian, and then we'll get a thought from the guys as well. First,
I'm answering too.
Best Canadian player of all time, Ian. Best Canadian player of all time.
Thibaut Hutchinson. Fact. Done.
Agree.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. Consensus number one. Most underrated Canadian player ever.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone really been underrated?
I think it means I want to say underrated by people who follow the Canadian game.
Nick Ledgerwood.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. I got to be honest, Hume. I was actually going to say you, and because you're. Sorry.
Throw me in there if you want.
Yeah, I'm throwing you in there, but Ledgerwood is one of those guys who, a Canadian soccer fan is going to pull up his Wikipedia page and say, "Oh, he hasn't played at any big clubs," and completely disregard what he's actually done for the national team and performed well in important games, especially during that 2014 World Cup qualifying cycle. So I'm going with Nick Ledgerwood too.
Yeah.
I might throw Bernier in there again. Like, I think he nearly went to Besiktas when he was in his early 20s, and if that had happened, I wonder what his career could have looked like.
Yeah.
All right, moving on then. Coolest stadium you've ever played in or been to?
Coolest?
Yeah.
The coolest one I've ever been to's got to be Bernabeu.
Yeah.
I'm not a Real fan, but I've got to say the Bernabeu.
All right, I'm going with the Stade Velodrome in Marseille, France, just because the design of it is really, really peculiar. I don't know, and that whole memory of just being there shortly after the Russian fans were causing mayhem in the streets. I was there, and so that town's crazy, and they have a crazy stadium. So cool stadium.
Yeah, I would probably go for Estadio de Luz in Lisbon. One of the new ones they built in Portugal for the Euros for Benfica, and it's a pretty cool venue.
All right, most intimidating atmosphere you've ever played in, Ian?
Honduras.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I've experienced the Estadio Metropolitano, whatever it's called, in San Pedro Sula twice. Once with Iain Hume, once with the team under Floro. I don't think you were there under Floro, though, were you, Ian?
No.
Yeah. But it's a different stadium within that same World Cup qualifying cycle that I thought was actually even crazier, and that was the Rommel Fernandez in Panama City. I thought that was just intense, and there's soldiers everywhere, and I think that was just a wild environment.
Yeah, I can't compete with those.
Yeah, you got it.
I was going to say something in England or something, and it's just like, it's not even close.
Give us something. No, give us something.
For you, the Den.
The Den, yeah, I've never been to Millwall. Yeah, I guess that.
Getting death threats after drawing in the FA Cup was a great feeling.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's an experience. If you guys haven't been there, there's like away fans have to walk through like a cage to get into the away end of the stadium. So that's an experience.
I like that.
That'll be up there. All right, Ian, best player you've ever played against?
That's a tough one. I'll go in their prime.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Sheringham at Spurs, but I've played against Del Piero, Nesta, Roberto Carlos, but they were at the end of their career.
Yeah. All right, last one. The best player you've ever played against that the common fan hasn't heard of?
Whoa. Best player I've ever heard of, the common fan. I don't even know. Because
this is why you're supposed to look at the script before you come on the show.
Oh, I did look at the script, and I'm just thinking about it. I honestly,
there has to be some like defender within CONCACAF that you thought was just a bully or somebody,
CONCACAF? No, I never. I'll be honest. I never had any big problems with CONCACAF defenders. I quite enjoyed it because they just throw themselves to the floor every time you wrestle with them.
What
I'll
about
have
in
to
the
go.
championship?
A big mate of mine who I played with in India last year. When I
Yeah.
was younger, he was horrible. Matt Mills. He was
Oh,
younger.
yeah, I
He was
remember.
quick, 6'2", 6'3", and he was just horrible to play against.
All right, you mentioned India. Let's get right into it now because I find this fascinating, especially your first year, 2014, Kerala Blasters, owner Sachin Tendulkar, player manager David James. Their marquee signing was Michael Chopra. Yet you were the star of the squad. What was that first year like?
It was insane. The guys I was playing up against it was like a thing from like Football Manager. Like I'm running up against I'm
Great.
teammates with David James,
Yeah.
playing against Elano, Materazzi, David Trezeguet, Robert Pires, Nicholas Anelka, Freddie Lundberg, Alessandro Nesta, Juan Capdevila, Luis Garcia.
Crazy.
These guys were all in one season, and I'm like, it was like playing in a Masters League. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
These guys was like everyone was a World Cup or Champions League winner, and the season after playing against Roberto Carlos and Lucio, and these are guys that in my all-time dream 11, some of them would pop up in it.
Yeah.
So to play against them was just incredible.
Must have been some great jersey swaps after the match.
Definitely.
You mentioned briefly earlier that this is probably the best ball you've been playing in your career. Why is it? Just reflect on that for a moment.
I think it was just the fact that it was a clean slate. Going out there, I had no expectations behind me. You got all these big name players. So Iain Hume from Preston North End was a nobody. So to go out there, certain people knew who I was, obviously having played against them. But to go out there and have nobody expecting so much of somebody, and I'm not one of the marquees to get bums in seats. So they're the ones that everyone's looking at, and they underperformed. Apart from Elano, everyone else pretty much underperformed. And Luis Garcia, sorry. But you look at it and it's like, I just went out and did me.
Yeah.
Go work hard, work for the team, popped up with a couple goals, and our team ended up making it to the final, which was when you're favorite to be wooden spoon for the season. It's to make it to the finals and to be a main part of that, and obviously got to lead the team out in the final was a massive thing. And okay, I only got 5 goals in the league, but obviously didn't go unnoticed, and I got voted the player of the season.
Had any of those legendary players really dropped off from the level they were at their best?
Oh, everyone did. Apart from Elano, maybe Capdevila at Northeast United was still class. He was okay. He was playing centre half rather than left back, but you could see how smart he was as a footballer. Del Piero was obviously off the pace quite a lot. Anelka was still class when he wanted to.
Yeah.
Lundberg was out there. Was no point in being out there. I think he played 6 minutes the whole season. Trezeguet didn't look bothered. Luis Garcia was still fit. Still is fit now. Like I still see. I follow him on social media, and guy's still fit as a fiddle. He could probably still play now. Yeah. But other than that, I'd say they were out there. It was a pleasant little payday, and they got to be fawned over by fans and everyone buzzing off them being out there, and shirt sales, and like I said, bums in seats.
Yeah.
After your 2014 year, you continued to stay in India for the next 5 years. Why? Especially after that great year in 2014. I'm sure you could have gone anywhere else and played.
Well, pretty much as soon as you go out to India, you fall off the face of the earth in the UK. So there was nothing there. And to be honest, I enjoyed it. It was only a 4-month season. When I came back after the first season, I signed for Tranmere, which is obviously the team where I started my career, which ended up being a mistake, I think, for both parties. So going back out there was a no-brainer. It was because I'd done so well. Obviously, the pay increased quite a lot, and the opportunity to continue playing out there with the fan base they've got, and it got me through the door in Spain. I played a couple seasons in Spain, so I got to go back and forth, sort of in and out of India and Spain for 2 seasons. So it was a no-brainer for me. I'd kind of opened up a new chapter in my career.
Yeah, curious to know about that Spain connection a little more because you went on to play for Atletico de Calcutta. Did that help bridge the gap there and set you up in Spain?
Yeah, well, I was actually after my first season in Calcutta, we were playing the US in LA.
Hmm.
So that was in the January uh,
Window?
international. So I was over there when I found out about Ponferradina in Spain. There was a couple other teams, and I got advised to go to this one. Just saying it was a better club, smaller club, more opportunity to play, which couldn't be further from the truth after I got there. But it was an opportunity nonetheless, and to go and ply my trade in Spain, which I wish had happened in my late 20s rather than my early 30s. I think was a great experience for me. I found out a lot about football and a lot about the potential corruption in football and stuff. Yeah, it was an interesting time, but it was a great experience, and I got to learn a lot about the game.
Yeah, in Calcutta, again, that relationship with Atletico, how involved were they, and how exciting is it to have a similar outfit now in Ottawa with the CPL?
Yeah, it was great. The one of the I don't know exactly the relationship, but one of the directors of Atletico Madrid, his nephew or his son-in-law or something, Alberto it was his pet project.
Hmm.
So Calcutta was his little project there, and they had another team in Malaysia, um, which and a team in China. So they went out there, and that was his little sort of project to sort of learn the trade about running a football club. And he was a technical or sporting director to them. And that's like they're the ones who started up Atletico San Luis in Mexico.
Yeah.
And now I don't think he's involved in the Ottawa one, but it was great to be involved with because they get you sorted, they look after you, you do your preseason in what is it? Los Angeles de San Rafael, which is just outside Madrid. So you go up to their old facility, which they've had for the last 70 years or 60 years. You train up there, you use it. They look after you, little hotel just up the road from it. And it's a good connection to have because you get to see what the club's about. And they bring you around the stadium. They bring you to games. They bring you to their training facility in the middle of Madrid. And it's just, it was a great connection at the time.
This may be more general before we get out of here, but give me the move that fell through that you wish would have happened and name the club.
That I wished would have happened for me. I don't know. During my career, there wasn't many that fell through properly. I had a couple vague ones, like there was one for China, there was one for Cyprus, but I think the biggest one for me was not getting a chance to play at home. Not getting a chance to come back and play in front of my family, and whether it had been for TFC, whether it had been for Vancouver or Montreal or even the CPL in the last year. I think they're the ones that disappoint me the most.
All right, before we let you go, one more question before we wrap things up here. Back to India, strangest experience or something about the league that people may not know?
Strangest experience, is I'd say probably the amount of animals on the road, whether it be cows, whether it be dogs. Like when I first moved over there,
I think Rohan Ricketts said the same
I was
thing.
just going to say this. Yeah, Rohan Ricketts alluded to this as
true.
well.
the first season I was playing for Kerala, we were actually in Calcutta, and I was walking around on FaceTime with my wife, and I'm walking up the road, and there's a cow walking towards me. I'm like, okay, crap myself a little bit, but okay, well, talking to her, saying, okay, I gotta go. There's a cow walking towards me. Turned around, and there was about 20 within about 10 feet of me, and I was kind of squashed in the middle of the road. So I had a bit of a panic up, but the fact that they were just everywhere, and you have so many different religions in India, and you have the Hindi religion, and they don't like eating beef. So yeah, they kind of idolize cows in a lot of places, and yeah, that was the hardest one for me. Was I'm a beef eater.
Yeah.
So it was a tough one for me. But yeah, the cows in the middle of the road kind of squashing me in was probably the weirdest experience for me.
You know what the most disappointing part of working from home is, Ian? Is that we didn't get the chance to have you on our broadcasts for the Trinidad games, which we were planning to do. Can let everybody know that right now, that you were going to join us as an analyst on that broadcast. So we're going to hope to get you on down the road as well.
If and when I can finally get over there, anytime.
Yeah, this has been a blast, Ian. Thank you so much for coming on with us. We're going well over an hour here, the longest hangout we've had. So thank you. Thanks to everyone for watching on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OneSoccer channel. Some great shows coming up. Andy Petrillo hosting OS Happy Hour. Gareth Wheeler show coming up on Thursday as well. Inside the game, so some great stuff you don't want to miss on OneSoccer. Stay safe, wash your hands, stay healthy, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for having me, guys.